Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order right now. It's on June 10th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. So we'll call the meeting to order. And first, second item of business, anybody having having to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof, you can declare it now. And seeing none, we'll get into we'll get right into the delegations, and hopefully I don't butcher this name too bad. And before I do that, I'd like to welcome members of the public. This is one of the best attended council meetings that I've seen, and we'll find out why pretty soon, I guess. So I'd like to call. So we've got. The delegation from We the Nuclear Free North, and I understand Sally Burns will be talking first, and then Sally, you have 5 minutes, and then Brennan Lloyd, that's probably wrong, but you have 5 minutes too, okay? And you can come up and give us your presentation.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Martin, Mayor Ferguson, and councillors. I'm presenting with Brennan Lloyd of We the Nuclear Free North today to add some local history and background on the resolution passed by council back in 1979 or 80 that declared Atikokan to be a nuclear-free zone. And I would like to present some arguments for the present day as to why you, as councillors, should now pass a bylaw declaring Atikokan to be a nuclear-free zone. In 1979, Atomic Energy of Canada Limited was drilling in this area to determine the suitability of this area for locating a nuclear waste storage facility. Local citizens collected many signatures on a petition against storing this toxic nuclear waste in the area, presented it to council, and council passed a resolution declaring Atikokan to be a nuclear-free zone. But because it was a resolution and not a bylaw, it was only in effect during the term of that council. So today we stand to have nuclear waste transported through our community and stored not far away in an underground facility. There are no benefits to our community in this scenario. Economically, the benefits to Atikokan are zero to negative. First of all, the construction phase is maybe 5 years and unlikely to benefit us, as jobs will no doubt be promised to the Wabigoon First Nation, as the facility would be in their traditional territory, and they are being courted in this local consultation process. If OPG, this is point 2, if OPG should ever decide to power the local plant with a small modular nuclear reactor, a nearby underground storage facility would be conveniently close. But this would negatively affect our local woods industry that supplies wood to make the pellets produced at Rentec and elsewhere in the region. Why would we want to encourage the possibility of using nuclear fuel and turn our backs on the local woods industry? Third point, the tourists who come to this area come to enjoy the fishing, hunting, wilderness canoe trips, and tourist resorts. Let's face it, transporting nuclear waste into our area and storing it nearby would not help attract tourists. It would more likely sway them to go elsewhere. So economically, the arguments for being supportive of nuclear waste facility in our region do not make sense. Supporting the forest industry and the tourism industry makes sense. I'd like to turn to the NWMO's local consultation process, how narrow it is and how it does not address the real long-term environmental dangers in our local watershed. I think NWMO's consultation process is really a convincing process. Quotation marks and capitals. It's a process to convince. They have given a lot of money to the town of Dryden and the First Nation of Wabigoon to buy influence. According to a Wabigoon residents, they have paid Wabigoon band counselors $1,000 for each meeting they attend, hosted by NWMO. But if the toxic nuclear waste facility was compromised by, say, an earthquake or a missile, the nuclear waste would seep into the groundwater and be carried down the Turtle River system to Rainy Lake, Rainy River, Lake of the Woods, the English River system, to Lake Winnipeg, and north to the Nelson River, by the North Nelson River to Hudson's Bay. The consultation is for short-term financial gain for a select few outside the watershed. It is outside the watershed that the communities are located in. It is a consultation process that sells safety reassurances along the lines of those given to the Titanic. Let's face it, safety guarantees about the containment of this nuclear waste storage facility are pretty meaningless when you consider that this toxic waste will remain radioactive even in 1 million years. On the matter of watersheds and nuclear waste storage and transportation, the nuclear waste would be transported from the densely populated Great Lakes watershed to our east, from the backyards of that population all around the Great Lakes, and brought over the height of land into our region and a local watershed. I've been accused of being a not in my backyard NIMBY person, but I contend that it is those living in the places served by the nuclear plants generating the nuclear waste who are the NIMBYs. But the powers that be want to bring the nuclear waste to a watershed with fewer voters. If the underground nuclear waste storage facilities located deep in the Canadian Shield are so safe, then build the storage facility to store toxic nuclear waste closer to where it's being generated. I have one last point to make regarding transportation, and if my time is running out, please be lenient, thank you. The Trans-Canada between Ignace and the Chappaqua Junction is closed often due to accidents, and traffic is diverted up or down Highway 622 through Atikokan. Trucks carrying nuclear waste would have to come over the tracks, turn off at the OPP station, pass the Atikokan General Hospital, the Little Falls Community Center, the golf course, cross the Atikokan River, drive by the backyards of the homes on Alder Road and the sliding hill, and go on up Highway 622, which is a secondary highway and has lower requirements for plowing, salting, sanding, and patrolling than other highways in the area, the Trans-Canada, for example. The trucks would continue up past good fishing lakes with resorts and cabins and homes on them. We do not want this route used for nuclear waste transportation. It's not a very safe highway. If you pass a bylaw, once again, declaring Atikokan to be a nuclear-free zone, you protect our community and outlying residents to the north and east from a possible nuclear waste spill. Many of us would be very grateful if you once again declare Atikokan to be a nuclear-free zone, but this time in the form of a bylaw. Many thanks for your attention and all the work you do.
Thank you, Sally. We'll give you a couple minutes for that. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time and attention. Mayor, members of council, Chair, I'm Bernine Lloyd. I work with Northwatch. It's through Northwatch that we are part of We the Nuclear Free North, which is an alliance of groups Northern Ontario-wide, including many groups in Northwestern Ontario, Environment North, long-standing group, but also many groups that are new and emerging in response to the nuclear waste management organizations, investigations and intentions in Northwestern Ontario. So we did write a letter March 1st, and we have been in the process of following up with councils, making presentations and visiting as opportunity presents. And I've been in the area for meetings with Treaty 3, and this was an opportune time, particularly given the discussions that have been taking place in the Committee of Whole on this topic. So I just want to touch briefly on key issues identified with the Nuclear Waste Management Organizations project. And I'm really highlighting what was already set out in the letter and backgrounder we sent on March 1st. So there will be risks. There are risks, and risks are a combination of probability and consequence. So the risks with the NWMO's project, in some cases, the probability is not just high, it's certain. there will be radioactive releases. There will be radiation releases from each transportation incident, from every time, 2 to 3 trucks a day for 50 years. There will be low levels of radiation coming off of those trucks. Much higher if there was an accident, if there was a breach of those containers. There will be releases from the used fuel packaging plant at the site. That packaging plant, processing plant, where they're going to extract the fuel waste, the highly radioactive fuel waste, and insert it into the containers. It will generate low-level, intermediate-level waste, liquid waste, and solid waste. There will also be releases to air and water from that used fuel packaging plant. Then you get to the deep geological repository, and if everything goes well, the releases will be later. If everything goes well, the containers will only degrade slowly and over time, but we don't know that things will go well. There is no other operating deep geological repository anywhere in the world. 50 years of effort by the industry internationally. There are some proposals that might be described as being soon on the near horizon, but there's none that are approved and operating. Finland applied for a license about 1.5 years ago, estimated a 1-year review for the internal stage, now extended for a 2nd year. Sweden applied in 2011, still no operating permit has been issued. And that's because of all the uncertainties associated with the design of the deep geological repositories, particularly when you go out in the longer term. In the case of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, we don't even have a project description. What we have is a set of concepts. They've got one transportation package certified by Ontario Hydro, designed by Ontario Hydro, certified in the 1980s, partially tested, drop test, puncture test, only partially successful, half-scale model in the 1980s. That's it in terms of definite design. The other transportation containers are concepts. The used fuel packaging plant is a concept. The deep geological repository itself is a concept. So we don't actually have a project description on the table. It's in flux, it's developing, it's evolving. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization and IGNACE just signed an agreement, and in that agreement, NWMO reserves the right to modify the scope of the project. They can change the project at any time along the way. And yet they're asking communities, actually only one community, IGNACE, and the Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation, to declare themselves to be willing. They always twin informed and willing. How can a community be informed and declare themselves willing when there isn't a project description, when it's still just a set of concepts and ideas? And why is IGNACE, one community along the transportation route, 45 kilometers away from the site, in a different watershed, why is IGNACE deemed to be the proxy decision maker? It's only because they put their hand up in 2009. Atikokan has the same transportation risk. Atikokan, NWMO will not identify their transportation route, even at the time of transportation. They're not required to, and that's under this sort of under the veil of security risk. So Atikokan will share the transportation risk. I live in North Bay, 1,600 kilometers away. My community shares the transportation risk, yet there's one community, IGNACE, is going to make the decision according to the NWMO's regime. And that decision is going to be made by IGNACE Council, not even by the people of IGNACE. It's going to be made by IGNACE Council. So I think my time is up.
Yep.
And I want to say I've enjoyed, having this time with you. We'd welcome questions. We did in our letter provide a draft resolution that a number of municipalities have passed and more are in the process of considering passing. And I'd encourage you to look at that or look at your past work as the municipality of Atikokan and join with other communities in Northwestern Ontario who are expressing concern and opposition, reflecting the concerns and opposition of their residents. So thank you very much. I welcome questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Have any councilors got any questions for the delegation? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. What are your feelings on SMR?
So small modular reactors are, they're sometimes referred to as PowerPoint reactors. So the small modular reactors that are being promoted in Canada, there's a short list of them. They're not yet designed. The BWRX at Darlington, proposed for Darlington, is exempt from an environmental assessment as of a decision of the Nuclear Safety Commission a few weeks ago. Just in general, they share the same problems that the current conventional reactors share, in that they generate a lasting legacy of highly radioactive waste. So it's a fleeting benefit of electricity for a lasting legacy of high-level radioactive waste that must be contained into perpetuity. That's something that they share with the current conventional reactors. They also share with the current conventional reactors that they are one of, if not the most expensive way to produce electricity. They actually cost more. Estimates are, and this is a study done out of Stanford University about 6 months ago, and I can provide you the reference. Small modular reactors will be more expensive per energy unit and produce more waste per energy unit than the conventional reactors. And we looked at this closely in a recent review for the BWRX at Darlington when the Commission was determining whether it fell under the 2009 environmental assessment or not. I won't go into all the details, but that's a persistent issue in the discussion, because the proponent, OPG, says, well, it's going to be smaller and less waste, but that's only if you compare it to 4 units that were 4 times its size. So there are better options more immediately available. Renewables, biomass, wind, water. There's storage storage options are rapidly developing. And most countries, out of the COP28, the most recent climate change negotiations, every country present committed to tripling renewable energy. And that's where things are going. Things are going, they're faster, they're cheaper, you can get them up and running. We can meet our climate targets going with renewables. We can't meet our climate targets going with small modular reactors. They're going to take too long, they're going to be too expensive, and they produce a lasting legacy.
Do you have any idea how many of them are operating in the worldwide today?
Small modular reactors?
Yes.
Depends how you count them. I mean, you could count them, you could count the research.
Just the ones that are producing power.
Oh, producing power? Not many. The ones in the smaller reactors in Canada that are operating, none of them produce power. So there's the research reactors, but none of them produce power. I don't have a number for how many are producing. If there are any of this sort of next generation, there's a whole sort of promotional campaign to suggest that the small modular reactors, the new reactors, will fill the energy gap, and they're the ones that are still under development. Many of them are very different designs from the CANDU design that we know in Canada. But I can get a number for you. I'm not aware of any of the next generation reactors being up and running, but I'll get back to you.
One more question, if I may.
Okay.
Do you think that the Council of the Day and the administration has the obligation and the right to secure a future for the town?
I absolutely think the municipality and the people of Atikokan have a right to secure your future. And I think that you've done a tremendous job at moving past the closure of the coal plant. You've got the biomass up and running. There's lots of opportunities for Atikokan in that field of renewable and alternatives and storage. Pump storage is a thing of the future, and you've got an opportunity, I think, for that here as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Chair Martin. Would you be willing to share your information that you have? Like I've done a few Zoom meetings with your organization, but I'd like to get your information so I can look into it further and educate myself as well.
Sure. So I can send a listing of resources and links to, we're part of 2 different series of webinars. Every February, Northwatch does a weekly series about nuclear waste, and I can provide you those. And then we're also part of a national network, and Nuclear Waste Watch is a national network, and we do more occasional sessions, but I can get you a list of all those resources, certainly.
Thank you. I'll give it my card to Sally so she can get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Zacharias.
Thank you, Chair Martin. You said a number of communities have already signed this resolution. Could you be more specific on that?
So, recently, La Vallée, Nipigon, I should have looked at the list before I came. If you go to nuclearwaste.ca and click on resolutions, you'll see the list, or you go to nuclearfreenorth.ca, and there's also a list of resolutions. There's some older resolutions. Chapel passed one earlier. There's, I think, been 3 or 4 recently, but there's also First Nations resolutions being passed. So Lac Seulah's passed a resolution. The Land Defenders Alliance, which is a consortium of First Nations in sort of Keewatin and Kenora area, has passed a resolution. Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition has just passed a resolution. I'll also get you that updated list of resolutions. So there are some that go back as far as 2005. So the City of North Bay, City of Timiskaming Shores, they passed resolutions back in 2005, and then it's been more intermittent. Since then, I think it's 4 or 5 since we put the letter out in March.
Thank you.
Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Chair Martin. So when Sally was doing her presentation, she asked that we do it in the form of a bylaw. So why have not these other communities done it in the form of a bylaw instead of a resolution? Because these resolutions are, once the council of the day is done,
I
why
think
is that not being encouraged elsewhere as well?
I think because the residents haven't asked for that. So we send out a resolution. It's been the standard tool. So, but I think that in a case like Atikokan, where the residents are asking for a bylaw, then that's an appropriate response from council. But as we, the Nuclear Free North, we sent out the sample resolution. It's really a decision of the municipality how they want to reflect the concerns and interests of their community. So in the case of Atikokan, if people are requesting a bylaw, then I think that's a good route for Atikokan to go. But as a regional alliance, we sent out the resolution as it's the more standard tool. So we sent that out. But do you want to speak to that, Sam?
Until recently, I wasn't aware that the resolution only lasted as long as the term of council, and it was covered in the paper. And I thought in that case, you need to pass a bylaw and to make it lasting. So it makes sense to do it that way, because we went through this all 44 years ago. I hope we don't have to do it again in a few years. Not that 44 is a few, but so it makes sense to do a bylaw.
I have a question. Have either of you taken the tour of the NWMO facility in Southern Ontario? Seen what a repository will look like, what the transportation will look like?
So I have toured the Revel site, the drill sites with NWMO personnel. I have visited the Oakville demonstration center and had, a long discussion. We had to, and when we went there, we said in advance we wanted to focus on the emplacement test that they had run and on the copper container. We didn't want to have a broad open discussion because we only had 6 hours there, so we focused in on those. So I was part of that. And I've also toured the Western Waste Management Facility, which is the place where low and intermediate level waste from Darlington, Pickering, and Bruce are stored, some of it incinerated, and the high level waste for Bruce is stored. I've also toured the Darlington site. And many years ago, I toured the Gentil 2 at Bécancour, Quebec.
Okay. Anybody else done that tour in the galley? No, nobody else? Okay. But maybe Mayor Ferguson, you could talk, how much power does Atikokan typically get from nuclear? How much percentage-wise? I mean, we're not getting all our electricity from biomass, correct?
No, biomass runs intermittently. They haven't actually ran since the first part of April right now. So the town doesn't get its power. But a few years ago, the East-West Tie Line was built to bring power from Southern Ontario to Northwestern Ontario. So that was the purpose of the East-West Tie Line, was to bring power from the south to the north. So to say what's powering our lights today and where did the power come? Did it come from hydro? Did it come from nuclear? Like, you can't tell where the molecules came from, but
okay.
It's a grid. In the Ontario electrical system is a grid, and all the power sources feed into the grid, and it's distributed from there. They talk about line loss and not bringing power to Northwestern Ontario because there's line loss from Pickering, Darlington to get to Atikokan. But as the power moves down, the power may come from different areas in Southern Ontario, and then it pushes the power as the generators go online, and it pushes the power. So it's difficult to say where the power is actually made that day, but.
Okay, so we probably do have benefit of nuclear.
Yeah, well, that was why the East-West Tie Line was built.
Right.
The East-West Tie Line was built with the thought that they wouldn't need Atikokan generating station.
Yeah.
Because the power could come from Southern Ontario to power the Northwest. And as the energy market has evolved, now they realize they need more power, and that's why they're talking about different, production with SMRs. There's more hydroelectric coming on. There's more wind. There's more solar. There's more batteries. Storage doesn't produce electricity. Storage stores electricity that's made at the low times of consumption. So you store energy at night when everybody's sleeping, and then you run that storage in the daytime. Storage doesn't actually generate electricity. It just makes it more feasible for for other generators. For instance, if the Atikokan generating station could store their power at night and then sell it in the daytime, it would run more, but it doesn't do that. So sorry if the question you asked was, do we have nuclear power running our lights? I don't know if we have nuclear.
Would you know?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, we were interveners in the early stages of the Ontario Energy Board license to construct for the East-West Tie. And as I recall from that, and it was many years ago, the purpose of the East-West Tie was grid stability. It wasn't intended necessarily for transfer. And then when we still did, we don't anymore have a long-term energy planning process, but we used to do long-term energy plans at 3-year intervals. And I recall the first one that it had in the maps, the arrows were going south to north. And the idea was we'd be bringing power from the north to the south. And then the next one, the arrows were going south. That was when the Ring of Fire was new on the horizon, and everybody, the buzz was that it was immediate and we'd be bringing power to the north. And the last one, and it was the last one because we no longer have that planning process, the arrows were going both ways. But I'll send to you, there is, and I think it's on the Ontario Power Generation website, but it could be on the Independent Electricity System Operator website. There's a helpful map that shows northwestern Ontario, and it's got two arrows, and one arrow is coming in from Manitoba. It says 85% of the power is generated in the region, and 85% of the electricity supply is generated in the region. And there's an arrow coming in from Manitoba for import, and there's an arrow going out to Minnesota for export. So generally, 85% of the power is generated in the Northwest, but there is some exchange between both Manitoba and Minnesota, and I'll follow up and provide you with that reference as well. So overall, yeah, it's true that there may be some transfer, but on balance, the Northwestern Ontario region is very healthy because you're largely self-sufficient, and the shortfall comes from nearby Manitoba. So Northwestern Ontario is in a very healthy situation in terms of your supply, as is. And there's lots of opportunity with, as prices go down, efficiency goes up on wind and solar. And I don't know if there's wind and solar studies been done in the area, but renewables really are, they're where the future lies. And you're in a great position to benefit from that.
Okay. I was wondering if we, with us having the benefit of nuclear here, that we, this isn't just a Southern Ontario problem. This is an Ontario problem. I guess we're part of the problem, and everybody needs to be part of the solution, right? The other thing that we never talk about, when we said we're not, years ago, we're a nuclear-free zone, we haven't talked about medicinal nuclear radiation, X-rays, CT scans, all these things. So, we are benefiting from this. I don't know where that waste is going, and if you know, that's fine. This is obviously going down the highway somewhere too. So, I mean, this stuff is going on, not to the extent that we're talking with with reactor rods and those sort of things. But so, there's a lot to consider as a council, to declare ourselves nuclear free. I mean, we're benefiting from it somehow, some way, and we have to come to a consensus on it. So, is there any more questions?
Can I just speak to the isotopes issue?
Sure.
So medical isotopes, until not long ago, were all produced in research reactors. They can also be produced in accelerons. More recently, both Bruce and Pickering have added an isotope production element to their commercial power production. So now, yes, they are capturing, it's a byproduct, and they're capturing that, but they're not necessary to the production of medical isotopes. Medical isotopes, until recently, were produced and can still be produced. The volume can be produced through research reactors and accelerators. So the waste from those research reactors, right now, it depends on the reactor. Some of them, so the Slowpoke in Saskatchewan was recently decommissioned, and the high-level waste went to Savannah River because if it's enriched uranium, it has to be returned. There's all kinds of variations, but generally research waste, high-level waste will go to Chalk River for storage, and the commercial high-level waste stays at the reactor station. So when we look overall, the question of, well, we've benefited, so we have to share the burden, that might be an argument if there was a benefit to moving at 1,600 kilometers. But there's not a benefit to moving at 1,600 kilometers. There's only additional risk. So the waste can be managed much closer to the site with additional, all of the same benefits can be achieved managing it close to the point of generation or at the point of generation. So when we're told as Northern Ontario residents that we've shared in the benefits, yes, maybe you know, my son lives in Toronto. He, you know, he uses nuclear power. But there has to be a rational argument for why you know, a site in northwestern Ontario is better than a site closer to the point of generation. And I haven't heard one. I just hear that there's additional risk from the transportation, and we're moving the waste and the operations further from the centers of expertise. So there's not really, the NWMO and other supporters haven't really made a compelling argument at any point as to why the Revel site has an advantage that would persuade us to take on all of that risk and all of that radioactive burden into perpetuity. You know, the cost-benefit analysis just doesn't go there.
Oh, yeah, I think where we live here, we all understand the risk of even driving in the summer, you know, with no nuclear on the highway. It's an inherent risk. And, you know, from what I gathered, the nuclear waste would not be being transported in the winter time. You're worried, Sally, you were worried about the roads and not being salted and all this sort of stuff. So it was my understanding it would be transported summertime only, not through the winter. But you know,
No, they actually say the equivalent of 9 months worth of transportation spread over the year. So there will be some days in the winter that they won't transport, just as there might be some days in the spring or summer if there's flooding or forest fire or road closures for other reasons. But overall, that 9 months, those transportation incidents are going to be spread over the year. Now, we can expect that there might be more cancellations in the winter, but there will be transportation incidents through the entire year, the equivalent of about 9 months worth of transportation spread throughout the year.
okay, thank you. Is there any more? If there's no more questions, then we'll.
I got just one last, just to follow up on what you said. So you're not opposed to a deep geological repository, it's just you're opposed to the one in Ignis. Is that what I'm hearing?
There hasn't been a credible case made for a deep geological repository. I very much support continued research on engineered containers. As a Northern Ontario organization, it's been a little bit surprising how much we've learned about the condition of waste at the reactor station. But we follow those radionuclides backwards. We discovered that the reactor communities were being told simply that the waste would go away, and we've learned a lot about the condition of the waste management, and we think it's not optimum. So the best option from a safety perspective right now is improved storage at site. Industry, the nuclear industry's kind of trump card as to why we need a deep geological repository. They say that we can't rely on society continuing on surface. They're talking about social collapse. So we can't rely on our society continuing in order to manage the waste at the site. And I don't think that's a convincing argument, because they're continuing to refurbish, extend life, extend operation. The waste has to stay at the site for 40 years after it comes out of the reactor. They're refurbishing, which means another 40 years of operation. So we've got an 80-year window when the most radioactive waste is going to remain at the reactor station. So it can't be an argument of social collapse being imminent is just not convincing. It's just not credible. There's no benefit to putting it in a deep geological repository. When you consider what criteria should we use to assess a waste management system, and I would suggest that you should be able to monitor the waste and the waste containers, measure the performance of the waste containers, and then when a deterioration of performance, when they start to fail, you should be able to mitigate. You should be able to do something. You should be able to reach them, repackage them, re-encapsulate them. When you put the waste, first of all, you bring it 1,600 kilometers. Then you put it down 500 to 1,000 meters. I think they're right now saying 680 meters. And then you put it down a tunnel that's maybe 1,000 meters long, and in a room that's 250 meters deep, and then you stack it, and then you pack bentonite around it, and you back out, and then you back out through that tunnel. The underground environment is going to be so highly radioactive that workers can't be present. That's what we learned at the Oakville demonstration facility. All of the placement will be done robotically because workers can't be present in that underground, that part of the repository, that underground environment. There is no described monitoring plan. So when you place the waste in that condition, you, I think, have made it as difficult as possible to monitor, to measure performance, and to mitigate, to do anything about it. So we really think that we need more secure on-site storage. It may be that the waste should be placed slightly subsurface, the way some of the European facilities do with intermediate level waste. That may be an option. We're not absolutely opposed to that, as long as it remains in a condition that it can be monitored, performance measured, and it can be retrieved, and there can be a response when failure is identified. And you can't do that in a deep geological repository. So again, there's no benefit from a technical safety perspective. There's no benefit to putting it in that situation. And so we don't support deep geological repositories. This is the fourth one we've looked at in detail. And there's others internationally. The Finnish one, the Swedish one, we have a general, understanding of them, but I can't say we've looked at them in detail. And none of them have made a compelling safety case. So we're not opposed to industry continuing to research. And I'd say, let's come back to this in 20, 30, 40 years. They've been at it since 1977, and let's revisit. But right now, for communities to be pressured to make a decision about a project for which there is not even a description, it just doesn't make sense. And so I think, maybe at some point, there will be a safety case can be made. I find it hard to imagine, given the placement of the waste becoming so inaccessible and so hard to monitor, measure, monitor, mitigate.
Did that answer your question, Rob? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, then we'll get on to the next item of business. Oh, okay, we have another question. Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Chair Martin. My question to you is this. I'm looking at the demographic of the population that's here, and I don't mean any offense by it, but in your committee that you work with, do you have a younger generation, or is just an older generation concern? You're very knowledgeable, I'll give you that, but who are you passing your knowledge on to? Like in 40 years, me and you aren't going to be here.
I have to say, I used to be young. And when I started on this, I was a young one, and there were older, coming behind me, had come before me. And there are now, I would say, that of the group that is very active, it does tend to be a demographic that's more 40s to 70s. But there are younger people, particularly when there's events and activities. It is a broad demographic comes out. I was just at a meeting in Kenora a couple of nights ago, and it was a wide demographic. So, yeah, we may look a little older, not all of us, but I think the fact that you see older people stepping up, I think speaks to the seriousness that we who were around when the problem was beginning place on the problem. So, and I think that it's often said, well, it's young people are going to have to deal with it. Well, I think we need to do our best to give them the best set of options that they're left to deal with.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Here, I thought everybody was here for the pictograph board presentation. Next up, we have the Atikokan Pictograph Board, and they want to. You have a delegation. Somebody want to talk about that? I don't have a name here, so. And yeah, we'll just take a minute here. I think some people are leaving. Thanks to all the public that came out too. I know this is a sensitive issue.
Oh, there was.
That's good.
Now you have a smaller group. Much smaller, I appreciate that, actually.
No, the facts, some of the facts she said, no, wasn't even close. No, according to me, what I found out today. Later.
We'll just close the door and then you can proceed, and you have 10 minutes as well. They had a long 10 minutes.
I'm not sure it'll take 10 minutes.
Okay.
My name is Stacey O'Sullivan. This is Phyllis Barr, and we are representing the Board of Directors for the Pictograph. Since the Pictograph it no longer has its space in the mall, we've been doing a lot of like pop-up type things, craft shows, that sort of thing. And we had an idea that we thought might be a reasonable option that might benefit the town as well as benefit us. So we heard that that Atikokan is not going to be able to hire I believe a supervisor for the Tourist Information Center this summer, and as a result the center won't be open and therefore will remain closed during the peak visitor and tourist season. We think this might be a missed opportunity for the town to disseminate local promotional materials and stuff to visitors, tourists and such for the region. And we had an idea that the Pictograph, which, I mean, we've been around for a long, long time, since '87, I think, and we have a pretty well-developed group of volunteers, and we thought that, with our long history, that we might be able to fill in that gap at the Tourist Information Bureau. What we are thinking is that we would be able to use our Pictograph staff, like our volunteer staff, to staff the Tourist Information Bureau during peak hours. I don't know how many days a week, say 3 or 4 days a week, or 4 or 5 days a week, depending on what we have available and what works for the town. And we could put crafts up for sale and stuff, so that would suit us from the Pictograph and allow us to, to promote local artisans and craftsmen for the region. And we could also have people, tell people about Atikokan. And, we know the town. The majority of the volunteers are, we're adults. We have a good understanding of what Atikokan has to offer. We can give really good advice for, where they can stay, where the great restaurants are, where they can get their ice cream cones, that kind of stuff. And we thought that it might be a reasonable option. We could establish and arrange a regular schedule, 3 or 4 days a week, sort of peak hours. We're thinking peak hours would probably be around 11 till 3, something like that, but I would bow to your expertise since you guys have run the Tourist Information Bureau for many years. And we could set up a plan, do it in advance, much like we did with the volunteer hours when we still had the gallery. And we could have, a key system that a key could be picked up at one local area. We used to have it at the florist shop, where a volunteer would pick up a key from there. We could do something similar, maybe here, or if it's on a weekend, maybe Voyager Bait or something, something like that, whoever would allow it. I put out a tentative call for possible volunteers amongst the crafts groups and volunteer groups that we have, and I received a yes, positive, yeah, I'd be willing to volunteer from about a dozen people. That was just a very quick little email that I sent out a few days ago, but I figure with, you know, a dozen, that's not a bad start anyway to get us going. And if we can show that this is working and that we have, you know, a space that people can go to, that it might work out as a, you know, as to something to get us more volunteers as well.
Yep.
We were hoping that if the town were willing to go with this, that a temporary sign could be erected near the entrance announcing the pictograph's participation at the Tourist Information Center, and that would also draw in people to stop there. And we were hoping that we could, you know, maybe have another sign a kilometer or so away, sort of saying, hey, you know, stop in at the tourist center, sort of thing. And, you know, this heads-up signage, you know, and the temporary sign, I think, could be reproduced fairly inexpensively. I think it's a good, you know, good creative hub. I think it could, you know, benefit both the town and the pictograph. You know, I would assume that the town would be able to ensure, like, you know, everything's working out there, and, you know, take care of the maintenance stuff that goes on there. I don't know exactly what's required, but that was our idea.
Thank you. Jason? Oh,
Just a question. So administration did discuss this. We appreciate the out-of-box thinking. We think it's got some real merit to it. The question is, for a nonprofit organization, do you guys carry insurance? You know, I'm thinking about content insurance and that sort of stuff.
We do have insurance. We have insurance through the insurance place in town here.
Perfect. Yeah, that was just admin's concern, is just making sure there was
And it covers all of our shows, like when we have our pop-up events and like Bass Classic, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's an umbrella that covers all those. So I'm assuming it would definitely
And
cover
we
it.
could check and ensure that we would have appropriate assurance. We could check with the insurance company.
Yeah, because the town would require a certificate of insurance.
Absolutely.
To balance our.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Zacharias, you have a question?
No, that was my question. I think this is a fabulous idea. I think it's a benefit to, again, both the Pictograph Gallery and the town. Yes, I fully endorse this idea.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I throw my full support behind this too. I think it's a great idea for both parties.
Excellent.
Thank you for,
I
like
think it's a win.
somebody said, thinking out of the box. Good for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mayor Ferguson?
And I echo Jim's thoughts and actually Janelle too. And so we're happy that, you know, people are thinking different ways around it. There's, you know, there's always answers that we can come up with when we have volunteers that come in and want to do things. It's, you know, we should be doing everything we can to support volunteer organizations like that. So you know, there'll be some details to work out too, but I think it's a great idea. So really
Excellent.
appreciate you coming down.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Councillor Shine?
Thank you, Chair Martin. I want to say thank you for Stacy. We had met about this previously, and I'm glad she followed through and did the presentation to the council. And thank you to Phyllis for offering your personal support. Thank you.
Yes. Jason?
The other comment, I guess, is that the budget's already been passed this year, so we were talking about signage and that, like, there isn't a budget for signage for this year, but if you guys have a sandwich board or something like that, and again, if this pilot project, let's call it, works out well, then I think when we look into the future, we could look at additional signage or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm kind of reading the room, and I would say, Stacy, probably reach out to me and we'll work out the logistics.
Okay.
And then, do you guys have a time frame where you're kind of ready when?
We were waiting to see what you guys all thought and whether this might be something that could go forward. And you know, we have a board meeting actually after this, so we'll probably talk about more about logistics. And I'm thinking that within a couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, sure. So if council wants, then we'll continue the conversation with you guys and lock it down and move forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
I just want to make one comment too. Thank you very much. And as acting mayor, I think it's an awesome idea. And I'll throw my support behind that. The whole key thing doesn't work. So just get one of them things where you punch the numbers in, and then everybody can have that code, and you can just go in and out whenever you want to. You don't have. Well, I don't know.
We don't have a whole lot of money, that's the only reason.
I can't make that decision.
All right, yeah, thank you very much. I'll email you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Onward. Committee of the Whole reports, and Clerk Bates is going to talk about administration and employee relations. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair Martin. We've had a request from the Township of Atikokan Nonprofit Housing Board, as Councillor Shine has been sitting on there as the council rep. They meet at lunch hour, and Councillor Shine can no longer meet at that time. So they're looking for another council rep to sit on the board. They meet the last Monday of the month at 12 noon, and their discussion ranges from capital repairs to tenant concerns, DSAB communications, and other housing matters. So I don't know if anybody would be willing to sit. I know Councillor McQuay had possibly said, but that's why I just wanted to bring it to council first to see if anyone else would like to sit on the board. Yes.
Councillor Shine?
Thank you, Chair Martin. The reason I stepped down from it is I know I had an hour lunch when I first got onto this committee, and then my lunch got switched to half an hour, and I had requested if they could change the meeting time till after 3:30, and they weren't willing to do that, so I had to step down.
That's okay.
Did you say it's on the weekend,
No,
the meetings?
it's the last Monday of the month
Last Monday of the month at noon.
at noon.
We'll give her a go.
You will?
Sure.
Councillor Johnson, stepping forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'll have the committee structure changed, and we'll bring that to the 24th, the meeting. Thank you.
So you'll email me, will I get an email when
Yep, I will.
them numbers, the meetings come?
Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Problem.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Do you gotta get dressed up?
Is there free lunch? You get lunch? Bring your lunch, Jimmy.
No shirt?
Okay, next, we'll skip right down to other business, and it looks like July and August meeting dates. Clerk Bates, are you going to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair Martin. Council only meets once during July and once in August, so we need to book a couple dates here. So I don't know exactly what everyone is looking at. But I would propose, I mean, it doesn't really matter. July 15th is fine if council's here. And we usually meet probably after the Bass Classic, so that would be August 19th. But it's up to council as to what they want to do.
The 19th, Jason and I won't be here.
I knew that.
Is that August?
Yep.
July 15th, I will not be here.
Should we just book and hope? Hope to get quorum?
So July 15th then? Sound good?
In August.
Can we
Then
go
we
to
start back
26
in.
for August? Instead of the 19th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
if that's what you want. And we can always call a special meeting if something comes up, too.
Yeah, well, there's 3 of us on the Bass Classic Committee, and
You
that
want a day
whole-
off.
It would
Yep.
be nice to just, especially after that weekend.
July 15th and August 26th. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. So we'll adjourn this meeting at 5:29. Does that sound right? And we'll take a 5-minute recess.